Welcome to the Something Wicked podcast, and tonight we're going to be talking about Series 1 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet.
Hey.
Now, I have to say, hands down, this is my favourite TV series ever.
No pressure, Lee.
No, well, this is it. I've been a bit reluctant to do it because it means so much to me, and I want to do it justice. And I know there are so many fans out there who the show is so dear to, and they
Absolutely, yeah.
absolutely love it. Very dedicated fan base.
Yeah.
And very understandable because it's such an amazing show and it had such a impact on me when I was growing up. I saw it when I was about 14, 15, and I've loved it ever since. I watch the episodes every now and again, and it's just brilliant. I never tire of watching it.
It is a lot of fun, isn't it? It is a lot of fun. And it's kind of a breath of fresh air in today's wokey cokey environment where,
That's
you know,
true, yeah.
it's kind of saying it how it is. Obviously, it was originally an ITV program, so you couldn't you couldn't get away with the incredibly visceral language that probably would have been taken place on these building sites, but it was a close vibe, I think, to what was taking place.
Yeah. I think over the years there's been sanitized versions put out of it where they have made ridiculous cuts. And I was
Well, I
watching it
heard,
yeah, they did. I mean, I can remember them repeating it probably in the late 80s.
did they
On
not try and do initially? They tried to do a half-hour versions of it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I was going to say. But
yeah,
it was the hour-long versions cut down into two half-hour
yeah,
slots.
putting them on at like the same time as EastEnders. He was supposed to
That's
be
it.
put on to compete with EastEnders, apparently.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time I'd seen it repeated since it probably was the first time it was repeated since it was on originally. I
Mm.
remember being really excited to watch it, but then half the episode didn't make any sense because they cut so much out.
There was big complaints about that.
And I
They,
think
they weren't really adding up.
no, when it came to putting it on streaming channels, there was again more cuts taken,
Mm.
more cuts made. But I have been watching them on
Mm.
ITVX recently, and
Yeah, me too.
they do seem to be the originals. I mean, I could be wrong there. There may be one or two cuts made, maybe outdated language, as they often say,
Yeah.
outdated attitudes, that sort of thing.
Ah, dear.
But they seem fairly intact.
Yeah, they do. They seem pretty intact. I've obviously been watching them too, on ITVX and a little bit on YouTube. There's quite a bit of stuff on YouTube too, but the full episodes are on ITVX, which is very good that ITVX are doing that, and not mucking around with them too much because it has got a lot of non-PC in inverted commas stuff going on within the episodes, but
But nothing
it's
too bad.
no, nothing too bad, and it's kind of charming, and also what's good about it, um, for example, when they go in the Indian restaurant, which is a hilarious scene, and Oz talks about the 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 German waiters in the Indian restaurant. Why can't they speak English? Because they're one of us. They're one of ours, like this. And then
Hey,
Dennis,
Sabu!
exactly. Tim Healy's character says, "Well, when you're in England, you don't act like that. You call them Sabu and Gunga Din." And then he said, "But he's going, but they're one of ours. They're British. There's nothing more British than a curry house." He's saying,
Yeah. Can I believe it? Doesn't speak any English.
I know, but then he carries on going, "Hey, Sabu, come over here." But it's great because it's pointing out Ozzy's ridiculous. You know,
He calls the barman in the local bar that they're always
call him
in. He calls him
Adolf.
Adolf.
I know, calls him Adolf.
Another two beers here, Adolf.
But the great thing is that that the poking the finger at Oz that for being such an ignorant tit, and they
Yeah,
all think he's a fucking ignorant tit, and
yeah,
that's the great thing about it, And I suppose that's part of what makes it acceptable, perhaps today. I don't know, but
yeah, yeah.
what is good though is that things like that were on television, and people were allowed to make their own judgment on it. You
Mm.
know, I think we've just gone too far, haven't we, with all of it these
Oh,
days? But anyway,
absolutely, yeah, yeah. But there is a scene where Dennis exposes that attitude of Oz, which is a really good scene because the character Dennis, he just gets, even though he's Ozzy's mate and he's the one that sort of brought him along, he just gets so tired and embarrassed by him, doesn't he? At times, he's always
exactly.
antagonizing the Germans for no good reason, and
Yeah, exactly.
just being such an idiot. And there's a really good bit of dialogue where he says, "Oh, I've been here with blokes like you before," because I think it was when Oz gets sacked and he's
Yes.
sulking,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's blaming the Germans and saying, "Oh, they're out, they're out of order." And he goes, "No, no, you brought this on yourself. You've been nothing but a dick since you came here. And
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
seen blokes like you come and go. They're ridiculously nationalistic for the country that can't even give them a job in the first place, and they show,
Exactly.
no gratitude to, the Germans who are actually putting money in your pocket."
Exactly.
And he's
I mean,
completely shocked by that.
and the great thing is the show is pointing. I mean, the big part of the show is it's making that point, making that important point about the state of Britain. That Britain, for the working man, it was a very difficult place, very, very, and especially in the northeast of Britain or in the north of Britain. So it was really pinpointing that it was making a very important message, I think, really, because it was pointing out how difficult a lot of people found it in that period of time. Yes, down south there might have been a lot of yuppies, and there might have been people with money on the bloody uh, on the stock exchange and blah blah. I mean, it was a really divided nation, I think, Britain, between people with loads of money, like Harry Enfield character, thinking he can go out and make loads of money, and other people who, especially for no fault of their own, but their birth in different areas of Britain, especially the north and the northeast, a hell of a fucking struggle. You know what
Mm,
I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
well, all across there, northeast, northwest, you name it. Going the further north you go, the harder it bloody was. And so
yeah.
they were having to go abroad to literally doing a Norman Tebbit and getting on more than getting on their bike, getting on the fucking boat
Getting
to
on
go
the
and get
ferry.
a job, getting on the ferry, leaving their families for months on end. Very tough.
Yeah, I heard one guy went across to Germany to bloody sweep a warehouse. He was that desperate for work. He was a
Fucking
skilled
hell.
craftsman. Uh,
Jesus.
and he was somebody that was really homesick. It was a real wrench for him to. He wasn't going for he was a sort of Neville type character. He was going reluctantly just to make a bob. And yeah, that's how bad things were.
But you know what struck me as well, if because I've made me notes here, and something I wanted to make a point of very quickly, and I'll make this very quickly. You can equate a lot, even though they didn't come up with the idea of Auf Wiedersehen pet, but Dick Clement and Ian Lafrene, in their previous work of like the Light Lads and Porridge, they were doing a similar thing, which is very much a reality check or a reflecting of what was taking place in society at the time, in both like the Light Lads and in Porridge, and
Mm,
then sort of exaggerating it into a sitcom idea.
mm,
Especially Porridge. You can equate Porridge and Auf Wiedersehen very closely, really, because it's a kind of slightly fantasized version and a sitcom version, a slightly heightened version of a real reality. So there was some real resonated reality in Porridge as there is in Auf Wiedersehen Pet, you know?
yeah. And they're very similar in the fact that they're about men living on top of each other in a confined
E-
space, having to
Exactly.
get along.
Exactly. The difference, of course, I suppose, with Alvis and Pet is that they get that opportunity to blow off steam at the weekend or in the evening, which causes conflict a lot of the time for them. But but I was really noticing, thinking, oh, that's very clever. It's very clever what those two did as writers there. They reflected a lot of things in society in a sort of slightly heightened sitcom kind of way. And
Yeah.
even though Alvida's Pet was an hour long, it was really it was really a situation comedy,
Well, it's
which
interesting that. I mean, obviously you think that when you watch it because it is so funny, but
it
I
wasn't
don't think.
advertised as that.
Yeah, they never saw it as that. I think they
No,
saw it as they wanted to do a drama at that point, and they saw the dramatic potential in this situation. And they were really interested in the original story, and because it did say something about the state of the country. I mean, they've said that they'd never want to be too political. And it was sort of compared with Boys from the Black Stuff, which came out a little earlier. But they said no, they're completely different. It was never meant to be political. It had like a political edge to it or an edge to it.
But I think, in a way, they really were the ground. It was groundbreaking for that idea of sort of comedy, stroke drama, pathos that Only Fools and Horses did later on.
Mm,
So it's kind of more on the humorous side, but with a lot of kind of drama and a lot of, especially say for the central character like Dennis, who's going through a very difficult time with his wife.
yeah.
Which is probably the most serious. And then, of course, he starts developing a relationship with this German woman there as well, and he has this conflict between his wife and his children and her, and that's a really good sort of idea, a real dilemma for this
Yeah,
character who is
I love the character of Dennis. I mean, because I've watched them all again recently.
Dennis is Tim Healy is a brilliant actor. He
Yeah.
plays it brilliantly. I think he's a very underrated actor. I think he
Mm.
plays it beautifully.
Just watching it again, and I probably didn't realize this as much when I've watched it previously, is just the burden Dennis carries throughout the series. I mean, like you say, he's going there. He's different to the others. He's a lot more mature. He's been to Germany before, and
Mm,
he's going back there on the back of getting kicked out of a marriage. But he holds all that in, doesn't he? He doesn't talk about it much. You can see he's touchy about it because Oz says some stupid things like, "Oh,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
your marriage is down the toilet. You don't have to worry about that." And you can see how hurt he is. And
absolutely.
the lads look up to him, and that's another burden that he carries reluctantly. And they're expecting him to sort out all their problems, particularly Neville.
Yeah,
And at
yeah,
times he cracks, doesn't he? He gets pissed off with that.
yeah.
And particularly towards the end, where he, like you say, he's faced with this dilemma where he sees him actually coming out of this bad situation with his wife, Vera, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
starting this new promising relationship with Dagmar.
yeah,
And then Vera comes along, drops a bombshell, and says she wants him back.
yeah.
And those last two or three episodes, he's getting pissed out of his head because he can't handle it emotionally, can he? He
Absolutely.
doesn't know what to do. And
And they are great. I think they're
yeah,
great. And especially, I think the final episode, episode 13, I think it is, isn't it?
yeah,
That is brilliant,
when the boat
because,
goes out.
yeah, when the boat goes out, and because, you were saying about picking the top five moments, and I'm kind of, I could have picked the top five moments out of that episode, to be honest. I
Yeah.
thought there's so many good, including one of the nicest moments, not don't want to go over into it because I'm sure we're going to come back to this later. But the scene when he's with Dagmar on the harbour and he's talking about his family and he's talking about the brave Dennis would do this, the bold Dennis would do this, but I'm not the bold Dennis anymore and I've got children, you
Mm.
know. And I kind of think that really resonates to you when you've got kids, doesn't it? Because I think when we were younger, we'd watch that scene and go with Dagmar, forget her, she's bloody let you down. But it's the kids, isn't it? He's thinking of his children. This is thing as much as anything else. So it's very grown up in many ways, the show.
Yeah.
But this is what's so clever about it. It's very grown up and it's very kind of juvenile as well. It's got these. So it's a brilliant mix. And of course, you've got the extreme character. If you look at the three, well, there's lots of main characters, but the three main Geordie characters of Dennis, Neville, and Oz. You've got Dennis, who's the kind of he's the centre ground guy who can let off a bit steam, but he's not as bonkers as Oz, who just doesn't give a shit about anything. And Neville, who is just a threater all the time and very kind
Yeah.
of sensitive.
Yeah.
So I love that the kind of dynamic between those three. It's great writing, is what it is, and great
It is.
character building.
I know it sort of makes me quite sad and also a little bit angry the fact that he ended up going back to Vera because you can see what a nightmare, even though she's only in a few scenes, you can
Yeah,
see how manipulative she is,
yeah,
and I think amongst the Auf Wiedersehen fan base that they also haven't really got over the fact that he went back to her and it all went tits up again because it didn't last. You
No,
see that in the second series, but
that's right.
yeah, it was so sad because Dennis was the guy that was the most selfless of them
That's
all,
the thing.
really.
He's
I mean, even
absolutely
Bomber,
selfless.
who's a family man
Yeah, yeah,
like Dennis, he used these trips to get away and
yeah,
be out with the lads. He had 5 kids,
yeah.
something like that. And I think like, you can understand he wants to get away. That is hard to live with that. But there's a scene when he goes back when his daughter actually goes missing.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and his wife knows this. She says, "Oh, you're having a great time out there, Bomber. Don't you kid me." And he's saying, "Well, it's better I'm out there than being here, getting under your feet, being on the dole." So yeah, he's got a point there, but I think he does enjoy himself a lot more than Dennis does. He
Oh, he
lets
certainly
loose,
does
doesn't
because
he?
he's off with bloody brothel. He's off to
He's
bloody
always in the
ma-
brothel, getting
brothels and
massages,
massage parlors
playing
and getting away with
cards.
prostitutes.
Yeah.
You know, so
Oh,
there's that
sex
element
workers,
of it.
Dave.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Is that yeah? Let's be politically correct. Sex workers. Um, the thing is that there's no hiding away from that fact in the show. There's no hiding away from the bad behaviour, is there?
No.
And I think that's really good because again, it creates these characters where one minute you're liking him, and the next minute you go, I'm not such a fan of Bomber anymore. He's a bit of a twat, really, doing that, and his missus is at home, and you know what I mean. So you've got this kind of mixed feelings. Whereas, kind of with Dennis, he's a pretty
He's dead straight, Dennis. Dead
straight.
decent.
And the only time you start thinking, oh, is when he's losing it a bit at the end, where he's boozing too much and he's kind of just letting go a bit there, which is understandable. But that's great. I mean, I'm assuming we'll talk about it later, but that scene when he hooks up with McGowan in the
Yeah.
the beer keller with all the Germans around,
Yeah.
and that's a great scene. But I won't talk about that. I'm sure we're going to come back to that, aren't we? Because
Yeah. Talking about that last episode, Dave, it was actually not written when they were towards the end of filming, and they'd already
really, I didn't
decided,
know
yeah,
that.
they already decided that they wanted the hut to burn down
See,
because
that's brilliant.
they
That's
actually hated the hut. And
a
part of the reason that was in the script was because all the crew and the cast wanted to see it burn to the ground because they actually filmed inside the huts. Now, they built the huts, obviously, for the exterior shots. Now, normally in that sort of situation, they would then move into the studio where it's nice and warm to film the interior shots. But they decided not to because they thought it would add a bit of realism to the show and the scenes. But it was a pain in the arse to film in the hut. It was really cold and it was
right.
also very cramped getting
I
all the
bet.
crew in there. And I have seen a picture of them filming inside, and it is really cramped. There's so many crew there surrounding, dead close to the actors. It must
I'm
have
glad they
felt quite
use it though.
claustrophobic.
It's good that they used it because it does create that. It does create that idea of it being a bit of a crappy place to live. You
Yeah.
know, they're all on
And
top
he,
of
and he
each other.
said that when the actors went in there just before they'd started to shoot, is that they all went to their own beds. Do you know what I mean? It was like they
Right,
had got used to it being theirs, and
right.
that added
Brilliant,
another bit of
brilliant.
realism to it.
There's a real authenticity about the show, isn't there? And a lot of that probably as well initially come. Well, there's quite a lot of quite naturalistic acting, I think, but especially from Jimmy Nail because he just wasn't a trained actor, was he? He just
Jimmy
came in.
Nail is unbelievable. It's
Yeah, unbelievable.
quite incredible how good he is. He's so
Yeah,
authentic.
he's an amazing talent. I think
Yeah,
it needs to be. It's almost forgotten what a great talent Jimmy Nail is. I mean, it's mad, really, because he became quite quickly almost like a superstar in Britain, didn't he? With
yeah, out of
follow-up
all of
shows.
them.
Yeah, yeah, like Spender was a massive show, wasn't it? And then he had
Mm.
hit singles and everything. He had like massive number 1 hit, didn't he, as well? So he's quite
He's in Evita.
yeah, he was in a that's right, he was in Evita, and he's a cracking singer and he's a talented lad, but he's literally was in like a crazy punk band, I think.
Yeah, he was in a band called the Crabs, and
That's right.
he wasn't into acting at all. But there were
No,
some
no.
auditions round the corner from where he was working on this house. Because what he did as well as being in this band was he bought and sold houses, did them up with a
Mm,
mate, and then sold them. And he said he was knocking down this wall near to where they were doing auditions for extras. And his
mm.
girlfriend was like, kept saying to him, you know, you want to go down, you get some good money for this. And he was dead reluctant and he really had to be persuaded. And when he got there, he was in a bit of a belligerent mood because they'd kept him waiting and he was on double yellers. But as soon as someone on the casting side or one of the directors heard him speak, he just immediately thought of Oz, you know, and they started talking to him, you know, trying to sound him out, really get to know him a bit more, where they wouldn't have done that with somebody that they were just hiring as an extra. But during this, the director who really saw something in him and saw him as Oz,
Mm.
Roger Bamford, he said, I didn't ask him any questions. I was just staring at him while the others were asking him. And about halfway through, he spotted me eyeing him. And he
Mm.
said, about halfway through, he said, you know, if you stare at people like that in this part of the country, you're liable to get your head kicked in. You know, and he was really quite threatening.
Yeah.
And the other guys on the panel were a bit like shocked at this. And then they crossed his name out on the list. But Roger
Mm.
Bamford, the guy he said that to, was like, no, no, we should
Put him
ask him
back in.
back.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne saw him, they couldn't believe it. They knew they'd struck gold because he was just so naturalistic.
So naturalistic, brilliant performance, and you know, you're always wanting him to be on screen because you know he's going to drive the story in some kind of this bizarre way, one way or another. You know, he's going to create chaos. Let's put it that way, at the
Yeah.
very least. Very good, very good.
His sister, Val McLean, was an actress, and she actually appears in the second series playing Dennis's sister, Norma.
Right, I didn't know
So
that.
when they found out that she was his sister, the team were a bit more reassured and thought, oh, right, okay, well, we might be able to make an actor out of him after all, because he was very raw, although he was perfect for the part.
Mm.
Even though he was up for this part, he still wasn't that enthusiastic, or he didn't actually think it would lead to anything. And he was asked to go down to London to with Tim Healy, who was obviously up for the part of Dennis. They were supposed to catch this plane early in the morning, and they'd arranged to meet, or one had arranged to pick the other up. I think Tim Healy had, and he wasn't ready. He'd slept in, and they only had like 10 minutes to get to the airport. But Tim Healy waited for him, risking his own chance at this show, really, because he
Oh,
thought if
top
I
man.
miss this plane, they're going to think that's crap, and they're going to cast somebody else because he wasn't the only one up for the part of Dennis
Yeah.
at that point. And Jimmy Nail in his book says he never forgot that. He says because even though they didn't know each other very well at that point, he
Mm.
said the fact that Tim Healy had waited for him, you know, meant absolutely everything because
I bet.
if he'd not, then it's likely that he might not have been cast.
No, oh, but yeah, and this is it. Both of them would have lost those
Mm.
roles, and that was selfless. And Tim Healy basically doing a very Dennis thing there as well, which
Exactly.
is a
Yeah.
brilliant.
But you know the
And
mad thing,
and
right?
and
Because
the great thing is Jimmy Nail doing a fucking Oz thing. You know what I mean? That's
exactly,
brilliant.
exactly. Yeah. But the mad thing is that apparently Tim Healy said he was up for the part of Oz.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because he'd previously done this drama, this comedy drama about the World Cup, and it was like set in the 1800s, I think. And he played
Oh,
this.
I think I've seen that. Is that the
Yeah.
one with Dennis Waterman?
Yeah, Dennis Waterman's in it. Yeah.
That's a great. That is a great one-off. Yeah, it's about a northeast team, amateur team, going over to Italy and beating the champions of Italy on this
Juventus,
one-off
yeah.
game, Juventus, and then being able to claim themselves as world champions.
Let me find out what it was called, Dave. Yeah,
I
it
think we
was
taped
called
it.
a World Cup. No, it was called the World Cup: A Captain's Tale.
A fantastic World Cup Captain's Tale, and we taped that on VHS, and we probably watched it as a family about 2 or 3 times because we thought it was fantastic. Yeah, I
Oh yeah,
vaguely remember him in it because when Auf Wiedersehen came on, I recognised him. I
Did you?
recognised I'd seen him in something else, and that must have been what I'd seen him in.
Because he played a
Yeah,
bit of a hard bastard in that.
yeah, I think yeah.
And that was why he was considered for the role of Oz. Though I
I
think
think he
Roger
could have done
Bamford
Oz.
denies this, the director. Two
Interestingly,
different
though, Lee,
stories
I
there.
I could see Tim Healy being able to play that role.
Hmm.
I could see him being able to play the sort of more belligerent, bit of a twat, a bit of a narky sod. I'm glad they did it the way they did it because
Yeah.
Jimmy Nail's just exceptional and Tim Healy's exceptional playing Dennis. You know, they're all exceptional. I mean, to be honest, Kevin Whately's a great actor as well. You
Well,
know, I
Kevin
think
Whately was going to read for the part of Oz.
was he really? Oh
Yeah.
my god, I can't really envisage that really.
No,
To
no.
be
But his
honest,
wife actually said to him, "Don't read for Oz because everyone will be reading for Oz. Read for Neville."
brilliant. His
And
wife's a
guess who he
clever
was
woman.
up against? He was up against Di Bradley, originally David Bradley, who was the little lad in Kes.
Oh wow,
And one of the
bloody
directors
hell!
really fancied Di Bradley for the role of Neville.
God, that could have changed Di Bradley's acting career because he didn't really do much after Kes, did
No, he
he?
didn't.
Really,
No,
sort of
no.
disappeared off the face of the earth.
But you can't
Yeah,
imagine any other actors in those roles now, can you?
you can't, and they're great actors. They are really good. What's good about them is when you hear them interviewed as people, they're very kind of sincere blokes. I think as well.
Mm.
I think that's and they're so Geordie. They're so authentically Geordie, each in their different way, which just resonates brilliantly in the show. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, a great casting, but the whole casting's amazing. The fact that you've got Pat Roach, so everybody watching it would already know that Pat Roach was this all-in wrestler. So in some ways, possibly the most well-known
He
person in
was.
the whole
He
cast,
definitely was.
because everyone knew Pat Roach was, and they kind of knew if they'd seen the Raiders of the Lost Ark, they knew, oh yeah, Pat Roach was in Raiders of the, in the Indiana Jones films, in Never Say Never Again, blah blah blah. Here's Pat Roach, you know. But the fact that we knew that he wasn't an actor, that he had this other life, kind of made him work really well as Bomber. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, he
Because
says when he got the scripts, he says, I couldn't believe it. I felt really overwhelmed and a bit out of my depth because I never saw myself as an actor reading lines. I was always like a stunt guy or, I was in action scenes where I didn't have much to say.
brilliant.
Particularly because his audition, he says, didn't go well at all. He said he thought he'd completely blown his audition because he couldn't say some of the words. I think one of the words he had to say was proclivities, which isn't the easiest
No, it's
word to
quite a
say
mouthful,
in a West
especially
Country accent.
yeah, and feeling nervous as
Yeah,
well.
because he's obviously a Brummie as well, so he had to put on an accent.
And it's great. His West Country accent is great.
It
He
is.
delivers.
Yeah.
His performance is great because he's kind of like the gentle giant.
Yeah.
He's brilliant, and the absolute tour de force comedy gem in the whole series is Tim Spall in it. I
James
mean,
Bond.
Tim Spall is such fucking brilliant actor, but but he's a brilliant comic actor too. Because Barry is Barry's, I think, my favourite character out of all
Well,
of them.
I'm glad you said that, Dave,
I
because
fucking love
I
Barry.
really wrestle with who is my favorite, Oz or Barry, and I've probably come down on the side of Oz just.
Well,
Uh,
I'm then
but
going to
I'm
take the
so glad
underdog.
you've evened that out with saying Barry because he apparently at the read-throughs, because he wasn't a well-known actor, but he'd done a lot of acting and he was clearly a very talented actor.
Yeah,
At the read-throughs, the rest of the cast were like in awe of him. He really raised it up a level. He was just so good, and the accent he does is amazing because he's a
it's
Cockney. Well,
brilliant.
he's not a Cockney; he's a Londoner, and
But his
they
Brummie
weren't.
is ace.
They obviously didn't want him to be a Londoner. They wanted him in it, but they were wondering where he could be from for ages. And his wife was a Brummie, I think. But then they were a bit worried about whether he could do the accent, but of course he could, and his accent is amazing.
It's brilliant.
And I
Wayne,
just love the Barry scenes,
I do.
the long
I do think, Wayne,
nuggets of information.
I do think, Wayne, calling me a radish is very unfair. I have to say, Wayne, I really do not like that.
You see the scene where Oz has that fantastic dream. Barry gets dead interested. Dreams reveal the psyche. What? The psyche? What's that? It's what dreams reveal.
It's
Dreams can be
brilliant.
very interesting. They do studies on them. Who does?
Well,
People who do studies on dreams. The other guy I was doing was Moxey there, of course.
yeah. Well, Moxey's great. I mean, they're all great, aren't they? But you know, Christopher Fairbank as Moxey, he's great, isn't he?
Well,
You know, and
he's a I think a Londoner, isn't he? Because he's got a very
yeah,
deep accent, and
but he's playing a Scouse, you know. But he
yeah,
does it
it was
really
his
well.
idea to make him
Uh,
Scouse because they were going to originally
oh,
do him as Irish, but he said, "Oh no,
yeah.
why not have a Scouser in there?" But
He's always something wrong with him. This is the thing. He's not well. He's got the shits. This is the thing. He's like, he's grubby. He's horrible.
I think the writers feel a bit guilty about Moxie because they say he was the most underwritten part,
Yeah,
and his agent didn't want him to do it for that reason. She says, "Oh, you get bored really easy. You're just going to be sat about watching other people act." I think after it had wrapped, he didn't feel very satisfied with what he'd done in it, even though he loved the show.
you know, it is slightly unfortunate that he doesn't have like the set storyline, but he adds extra flavour to the mix, doesn't he?
Yeah.
This is the thing. This is what it's all about. All these great characters, all stuck together. You know, all quite different in their own way. And I mean, I'm going to give you one of my top five because you asked about top five. I'm sorry, I've got to do it now. So I'm gonna give you my number five right now, Lee, because I've got to
Okay.
mention it. It's the episode where Wayne shows Barry how to pull.
Oh,
I think
yes.
I fucking love it. And of course, Wayne's fucking useless in this episode as well. It becomes useless, but it's wonderful watching Timothy still. Yeah, Timothy Small as Barry stole the bike at the lights, you know, trying to
Yeah.
follow the Swedish
Come
girl.
on, you
When they
bloody radish.
go on, you radish.
Don't
I
call
really,
him it. Stop calling me
I
that.
do not appreciate you calling me a radish there, Wayne. Please. They plunge the bike into the little stream and whatever, and
Yeah.
then come back to the hotel later on. I mean, it's so random. Like somehow they think that they're going to pull these Swedish
Well,
girls, even though they
it's also
know
it
they're in the
sets
hotel.
sets them up, isn't it?
And then all sets up the trap. Like,
Hello, Intercontinental.
in the Continental room, I can ask the two chaps who are waiting about there, right? There's a Wayne and a Barry to go to room 612. It's, you know, it's so ridiculous,
I mean, I
but I
do
think
think that's
great
pretty.
fun scene.
I don't want to say there's a flaw in the writing there, but I mean, because basically all Oz says is when he rings the Intercontinental is send a message for Mr. Wayne Norris to go up to room whatever.
Yeah,
But I think Barry does actually say on the way up in the lift, how did they know we were here? How did they know our names?
yeah, I know.
Or my name? Damn,
It's
don't matter,
ridiculous.
does it? I mean,
I know.
obviously
That's the thing.
his dick had taken over his thinking at
Exactly.
that point.
Wayne doesn't care. It doesn't matter, does it? You know, these wily fucking Swedish girls. You know, it's fucking bullshit.
Well, of course,
Fun.
before that scene is where when these girls sit behind him outside that bar.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
might say something. He goes, all right, would you like to come back to our
Come
hut?
now. That is so funny. Would you like to
Poor
come back to
Barry,
our
though.
hut?
I think the idea is that Barry is a virgin
Yeah, I
in
think
the
yeah.
show, actually.
I love his honesty though. Barry's such an honest character though because he's like, I have not had much success with the opposite sex. And they were saying about being engaged. This woman, he goes, I didn't really like her very much. It's like
Is that a
fucking
late
hell.
Surtees or someone?
Yeah, yeah,
What'd you get friggin' engaged for?
yeah.
Well,
I
I
love
think it was because her dad had a season ticket, a spare season ticket to
for
Wolverhampton
Wolverhampton
Wanderers.
Wanderers. Yeah. Oh, fair enough. That's a good Wayne impression, Lee. I like that.
Oh, but
Again, Gary Holtman is great as well because he is he's very authentic as this kind of like
yeah,
cheap.
apparently he is just himself in it.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I've
can
read.
imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine it. Sleazy fucking woman chaser. Probably got like a diseased fucking cock. You know, STD. You know. There you go.
He's done a bit of acting, of course. He was in Quadrophenia, and he was in one or two other things. And he was in a band called the Heavy Metal Kids,
That's right,
and
most of you. Yeah,
sung the theme tune to Murphy's Mob, which we've mentioned on another pod.
indeed. Yeah,
Um, so they thought, yeah, he'd be perfect for Wayne. I mean, it makes you think how well these characters were written, because
yeah, yeah.
I wonder, when you're writing a character, how how fleshed out do you actually make them? I mean, I'm sure
Mm,
it differs between writers. Some obviously will have an actor in mind when they write a character, but not in this case, because that was another interesting thing about it, is that Roger Bamford, one of the directors, he was told to when he was told they were talking about casting, is get some big names in,
mm.
and he thought that wasn't the right way to go. He thought you'd lose a bit of authenticity. I think James
Yeah,
Bolam was one of the actors that they had in mind, or someone did. But he thought, no, you've got to cast some unknowns here.
yeah. No, it's a great choice that because obviously James Boland was very, very well established actor, wasn't he? He already had some big hits, obviously with the Lightly Lads, so he's obviously closely linked to Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne. But and things like When the Boat comes
Mm.
in, which of
I
course they play.
suppose they would have maybe played the Dennis character.
Yeah, quite possibly. But then again, he was known as a kind of a roguish character, wasn't he, in the Lightly Lads?
Mm.
Um, because interestingly, in the Lightly Lads, his character was more like Oz, and Rodney Bew's character was kind of like Neville. Really, there's quite a
Yeah,
strong sort of identity in some
that's
ways in those
true.
two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But just going back to the roots of Auf Wiedersehen, Pat, how it all started. I think at the beginning of each
Uh,
episode, it does say something like created by Frank Rodham. Now, Frank Rodham was a director at that point, and he did The Family. Do you remember the first Fly on the Wall show
yeah,
called
I
The
did.
Family
Yeah,
in the mid 70s, which was quite a big thing? And
I
he
know what
got
you
the
meant.
idea of Auf Wiedersehen, Pat, when he was visiting his parents in Stockton-on-Tees, and he
Yeah,
went to look up an old mate called Mick Connell. Now, Mick Connell is not a name that's going to be familiar to most people. I'm sure the Auf Wiedersehen
no,
Pet fans know of him, but he was Frank Rodham's mate, and Frank had gone to look for him, and he went in a pub that he thought he might be and he was told by others, "Oh no, he's working in Germany."
yeah,
And he thought, what do you mean he's working in Germany? He says, yeah, there's no work round here. That's a lot of the lads have gone over there. And Frank Rodham eventually hooked up with him, and he was
mm,
talking to him about it. And he thought immediately, this is a really good idea for a show or a play. I think originally he had in his mind that it was going to be a one-off play. And from that point on, he went over there. I think he went over there with Willie Russell, because he was thinking, I need a good writer on this. Though it didn't really go to plan for some reason, and they came home a bit disappointed, and Willie Russell left the project at that point. He then had in mind Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne, and bizarrely, they were all living in Los Angeles at the time,
yeah.
because LaFrenne and Clement had moved over there. I'm trying to think what they were working on. Was there some film that? Oh no, it was to develop porridge for the American audience.
American market. Yeah,
Yeah, and they stayed over there, and they got involved in writing for films and stuff. And Frank
that's
Rodham was
right.
living over there, and they met up, and he pitched this idea to them, and they absolutely loved it, and they really wanted to get back into doing something like that. And yeah, that's how it was.
And
It sort of came about. But one interesting story is they kept Mick Connell on as a sort of consultant, because he had been and done it. He'd been to Germany a few times. And Ian LaFrenne was phoning him all the time, asking about how it was and that. And he said, but then his phone got cut off, so he couldn't do it. But they'd arranged phone calls to this local phone box near to where
right.
Mick Connell lived.
Yeah,
But because of the time difference, they'd arranged the calls for 1 o'clock in the morning, UK time. So Mick Connell was stood outside this phone box, and these police came over, and said, "What you doing outside here, Mick?" And he said, "Oh, I'm waiting for a call from Hollywood." And you're like, "You know what?" And yeah. And then, fortunately, a couple of minutes later, the phone rang, and yeah,
Amazing. That is a brilliant story. I love that. The other interesting thing about Frank Rodham, of course, is that he'd make a great quiz question because you could say Frank Rodham created Auf Wiedersehen Pet, and can you name the other television show that was a massive hit that he created? Because it's so outlandish and so far removed from Auf Wiedersehen Pet.
oh, I don't think I know this.
Master Chef.
No.
I'm telling you, Frank
Oh,
Rodham created Master Chef, which has
bloody
had this
hell.
massive run. And of course, he directed Quadrophenia, didn't he?
Yeah, so
And there's the connection with Gary Holton.
that's right. And Tim Spaulding was also in it, and Ray Winston.
Oh yes, of course, Tim Spaulding. I forget
And
Tim Spaulding.
Elphick McGowan was in it.
Elphick
Yeah.
McGowan. Yes, yeah,
But
that's
yeah, so
interesting.
that came about. So it was 77 when he first had this idea. And he had to sort of put it on the back burner because of Quadrophenia. He'd been offered to do this. But he'd never forgot. He thought, I've got to do something with this. It's a great idea. And yeah, so good job he did, because he could have just got wrapped up in making feature films, couldn't he?
Yeah, yeah, but he must be like seriously fucking loaded, Frank Rodham, because MasterChef's been like a worldwide franchise that
Hmm.
he created. So I bet he's so fucking rich from that. It's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, what an interesting career. What a I love these kind of strange, quirky careers on the, not even on the fringes of television, because obviously he's created Auf Wiedersehen Pet and created bloody MasterChef, and then directed Quadrophenia. But there's not much else on his
No,
CV, which is
no.
kind of interesting because it says here films. I say there's not much else. There is a bit, to be fair. He's done Quadrophenia, Lords of Discipline, 1983, The Bride, 1985. The Bride.
That was with
Is that?
Sting, wasn't
I
it?
was going to say that's one about Frankenstein, isn't it? Ah,
A big friend of Jimmy Nail is Sting.
yes, he is indeed. They did the Last Boat, is it called? About the
Yeah,
Sting's musical about the shipbuilders. War Party and K2 is done there.
K2.
Yeah, but not the yeah. It's
That
from
the one with John
1991.
Michael Bean in it? Was it?
Could well be
Mm.
1991. Does that ring it? Let's have a look.
Yeah, probably
Let's have a
was.
look. K2. I'm sure it was. This looks like it was quite a big film then. Yeah, Michael Bain. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it would have been a big film that then.
Yeah. So the other thing about Frank Rodham, when he directed The Family, the Fly in the Wall show, they went on holiday to, I think it was Spain, and he got an idea of how the average working man acted when he was abroad. You
Yeah,
know, filling
brilliant.
his suitcase with Tetley tea
Yeah,
and, you know, home comforts, things like that, and was obviously a bit xenophobic and
yeah.
critical of the food, that sort of thing.
Brilliant.
And another story that made it a real life story is when he went over on this recce to, you know, to see how it all worked in real life. He said there was one lad that they went with, and he did actually write the first postcard to his wife from the first service station that they stopped at, which is, of course, made it into the show as something Neville does.
That's right.
Writes about five postcards to Brenda before they actually reach Germany.
Absolutely brilliant.
You know, Neville to me, he gets on my tits a bit. He is a bit of a wet blanket and he's a bit of a whiner. But he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about what other people think of him,
No,
does he?
he
And,
is.
you know, Oz will take the piss and the others, but you know, he stands up to McGowan even. So he's got
Yeah.
this
Oh,
in his character.
he's got a hard. He's tough inside. He's got a tough
Yeah.
inside. He grabs hold of a couple of times. Yeah, he grabs hold of Oz, pulls him to a side, and gives him a talking to. You know,
Mm.
that last episode when Oz is trying to sort of. It's interesting. He grabs Oz, he pulls him to one side, and he says, "What are you doing? You know, that's not the way to speak to him. You can't. You see, he's struggling." So he has that. He has that kind of inner kind of strength and determination. He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
he can be himself. He's comfortable in his own skin, isn't he?
And
He
he's
doesn't
quite
try to be anybody else.
no, he doesn't try to be anybody else, and he's very convincing. I think Kevin Whately in that kind of role,
Hmm.
and also because he's quite a big physical presence. You kind of think, well, he's a big lad. He probably is quite handy. You know what I mean?
Famously, wasn't he older than Tim Healy in real
Uh,
life?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of those
Yeah.
bizarre quirks, isn't it? Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be like 20, 23, 24, something like that, maybe even younger. And
Let's have a look.
Dennis is supposed to be like in his early 30s, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of these quirks in
But
the
I love
acting
the
world.
different motivations that they all have, for going
Absolutely.
over to Germany. Barry's there for his West Bromwich and District Building Society account and his mum.
Yeah,
Uh,
bless.
Bomber's there partly to get away from his family, but also to
Yeah,
support his family.
yeah,
Ozzy's there just because it's something to do.
yeah,
Dennis is there to get away from a difficult situation with his wife, having just been kicked out of the marriage, and also to support his kids and Vera. And
yeah,
Wayne's there.
yeah, yeah.
What's Wayne there for? Maybe just
The pussy.
he fancies having a go at some German women.
I'm here for the girls. Yeah.
Moxey's there
To
sort of to
shit. Have a
escape
shit.
because he's got a bit of a sketchy background, hasn't he, Moxie?
Yeah.
Uh,
To get over his last cold and to shit himself. What does Wayne say? All you do is nasty up the fucking porcelain. Something like that. Yeah, Tim Healy is 73 and Kevin Whately is 74.
wow.
And there we go.
So I'm going to talk about one of my favourite scenes now, Dave. And
Please,
these
shall we do
aren't
shall we do the favourite scenes, mate? Shall we do
yeah.
it?
So these aren't in any particular order,
No.
but I love the scene where Barry is looking for his sock.
Yeah.
Why is it right that you take two off at night and you can only find one in the morning?
Uh,
And I'm right in thinking, is that the one where Oz has this fantastic dream
yes, I think
about
it is.
Yvette?
Yeah.
So, whilst Oz is recounting this amazing dream with this gorgeous bird in it, Barry's searching the hut for this sock. And as he leaves defeated, having not found the sock, Oz sits down at the table, lifts a plate, and goes, "Whose is this bloody sock?"
It's brilliant.
I just love it because Barry, it's just how Barry gets increasingly mad looking for
But
this.
so
Because we've
good.
all been there, Dave. I've been there.
Always,
It's so
totally.
frustrating when you can't find your sock.
Infuriating.
And you just think that some external force
Yeah,
is
exactly. It's against
pissing
you.
with you, is fucking with your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. That is a brilliant.
But I just love all the Barry bits.
I do. Barry.
When he
Oh,
starts talking about some subject and I've been watching a few with Michelle, who is enjoying them, but she's not as obviously enthusiastic as me. But I can see that she laughs more at Barry than anybody
Barry.
else. She'll be there chuckling away when she starts, and everybody else starts rolling their
Well, it
eyes.
can have a lot of empathy. I'm sure that that women. I think that because Jackie watched one with me and enjoyed it because it kind of meanders along quite well, and then something funny happens. But I think you can probably identify from a female point of view with Barry, who is kind of lovely in a misguided way, and he's a bit of a radish and a bit of a nerd, and all. But
They
um,
always call him a bore, don't they? But I find what
I
he says
know
quite interesting. Maybe that
I,
says more about me, but
I think deep down they all kind of admire him. You know, that's the thing
mm,
I get. They all kind of admire his sort of knowledge and his approach. And again, he's very honest about who he is as a character. Very
yeah,
honest as a person. So I love about all. No one's pretended to be something they're not. You
no,
know, and she's great. But you can see why maybe, especially for a modern audience. Let's say a modern audience watching it, Barry would be someone you would kind of gravitate towards because he's kind of a little bit of an underdog and he's kind of very funny and he's kind of sweet, kind of a sweet person as well,
mm,
Whereas Oz is so belligerent but brilliant. You know, he is kind of brilliant, belligerent, but he can be beautiful as well. You know, he can be a
Yeah, I'm trying
really
to think. Did Oz ever do anything nice for anybody?
okay. So this is going to be this is a brilliant segue because you saying that. So my next favorite scene is what I call the brawl in the beer cellar. Let's call it that, where Dennis, who is drinking himself into a stupor because he's so sort of torn between his situation with Dagmar and going back with his wife, finds himself getting leathered, and McGowan shows up, Michael Elphick, who is an absolute twat of a character, and he's a nasty, violent bastard. And they start getting leathered together, and a German guy comes over to have a go at Dennis
Yeah.
because he's going out with Dagmar, and Dennis starts the fight. And little known to Dennis at this time is that Oz has come along to keep his eye out on Dennis
Yeah.
because he's worried about him, because he's his mate. And when a huge fight ensues at that point, it transpires that Oz ends up having his arm slashed really badly and he loses a lot of blood. He ends up in hospital, and Oz is kind of a unsung hero there, or soon to become a sung hero because they realise what he's done there. He's come to look out for him,
Mm.
and Dennis really appreciates him then because there's a lot of times he really gets on Dennis's tits. Dennis likes Oz. There's times he could do without him, and he tells him so.
I think the idea is that Dennis knew Oz, but I don't
Yeah.
think he knew him very well.
No,
And I think if he
that's the
actually
point.
knew what he was really like, he certainly wouldn't have asked him to come on the trip.
No, and this is the beautiful sort of dichotomy within this relationship because Oz thinks Dennis is a proper mate, and Dennis thinks Oz is a bit of a tit. In
He
reality,
could
he
take him or
kind of
leave him.
likes, yeah, he kind of likes him at times. There's other times he gets on his fucking nerves. But Oz thinks Dennis is ace, and to
Yeah,
be
he
fair, he
does.
thinks a lot of everybody
He
really.
does.
But
I
he
think
just,
that's true, Dave, because I
but
think Oz does really love the guys in many ways. He loves the camaraderie. I mean, you see that when he starts sulking,
sure,
when he doesn't go on the fishing trip with them.
exactly. But sometimes he comes across as that he's got the emotions of a sociopath. He doesn't seem to like kind of have the full spectrum of emotions that the others kind of do have, you know. So he
Mm.
doesn't get it. He seems to not get it sometimes, or he doesn't seem to care. You know, that's the key. But he proves in this, which is kind of beautiful, that he does care. He wants to look out for Dennis, and he is worried about him. And he said that. He says that to Neville. He says, "I am worried about him. It's just my way of
Well,
trying to
that's
cheer
it,
him
because
up."
it's prompted by them having a go at him for not
Yes,
caring about Dennis, I think. Um,
exactly. That's exactly right. Because
but
that's part of
I
the.
do feel it did touch a nerve. I mean, you might
It
think,
did
okay, well, he's gone there to prove a point to the other lads, but I think
exactly.
there might be a little bit of that, of course,
And
but I think genuinely he does really love Dennis.
absolutely does, and that is prompted by that scene where Neville drags him to one side and says, "What are you doing? You know,
Mm,
where's your feelings? Where's your emotion? Can't you see he's suffering?" He goes on, and he does this. He does this very brave act to try and protect his friend, who started the fight, who caused the bloody fight,
mm.
and he ends up in hospital having a blood transfusion. However, the great comedy moment comes when Oz finds out that he's had a blood transfusion and he's fucking horrified because he goes, 4 pints of German blood. I'm half German. And then, of course, Dennis manages by kicking Neville in the shins to convince Oz that the blood has come from Neville, which he's delighted about because he's another Geordie. He goes, "Why, hey man, we're blood brothers now. We're blood brothers."
Oh yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But when he sort of announces 4 pints of German blood. Oh no, God, I'm half German. Might have killed me.
It would have served him right though, wouldn't
Oh
it? Because he's
God,
been
it would
so
have
down on
served
the
him
Germans.
so down on the Germans. It's hilarious scene, brilliant.
Well, one of the early episodes, he gets into a fight with the scaffolders, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
he's
yeah.
in the bar sounding off.
So is this one of your? Because this was going to be one of mine. Is this
No,
one of
it
yours?
wasn't actually, because there's
Okay,
so many incidents like this. Well,
but
he's
this
having
was
a
going to
go at the
be.
Germans.
Yeah,
He was
go on.
having a go at them for not even having their own songs, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
when he hears a version of My Baby Takes the Morning Train.
yeah.
Why can't they write their own songs? So this German hears him sounding off about Germany and Germans, and he comes over and he says, "If Germany is such no good place, why don't you piss off?"
Piss off back
And you
to
just hear
England.
a glass smash, don't you?
Clink.
But Oz ends up on the losing side with a plaster on his nose, doesn't it?
Indeed, indeed. But that was, and that episode's called "Who Won the War," isn't it? That episode, and that was going to be my next thing, my next favourite scene,
Oh,
because
brilliant.
I love the preamble into that where Barry's talking to us before the guy comes over, and goes, "Why don't you piss off back to England then?" But he's going to Oz because Oz is saying, "Why, man, I don't like any of them. The this, that, and the other," and Barry goes, "Uh." The thing is, Oz, right, is that if you take Kevin Keegan, for example, he's integrated himself into the German way of life, learned the language,
I'm Mrs. Keegan.
and Mrs. Keegan, and he's giving this fucking. I love it. They've really integrated themselves into the society in Germany.
But that doesn't convince him. But amazingly,
I love
Keegan
that. I
plays a
love that scene.
part. Keegan plays a part in the end, doesn't it? Because
Yeah, yeah.
in that last episode, one of the things that
Yes, yes.
does piss off the other lads, and Ozzy's insensitivity to Dennis's situation is he keeps hassling Dennis, trying to find out whether he's going back to England or staying in Germany, right?
Yeah,
Because he only wants to stay in Germany if some of the others are staying. And at that point,
yeah,
I don't think any of them have decided.
yeah.
He's even asking Moxey, and he says something like to Moxey, "Can you not see how desperate I am?
Asking
If
you.
I'm now asking you, that's supposed to make me feel better, Ross." So
Oh,
that's the thing where they call him out and
yeah.
say, all you're interested in is whether Dennis is staying or not. You're not interested in Dennis at all. Uh,
I mean, he's a deeply selfish man. This is the
yeah.
thing with Ozzy. He's a
But what
fucking deep.
convinces Oz to return to England? And it is in that scene in the hospital after the fight.
I know what you're
He
gonna
gets
say.
the papers, doesn't he? I think Neville or
Yeah,
Dennis brings them in, and it's announced that Kevin Keegan is signing for Newcastle.
Newcastle United. Like, going to Newcastle United. It's brilliant, isn't it? It's like, why? I
This is it. I'm going back.
brilliant.
Uh,
It is. What's your next scene, Lee? Come on,
oh
give us
well,
one.
I did have the Hello Intercontinental scene down, which we've
Yeah,
already
yeah,
talked about.
yeah, yeah.
This
Oh, sorry, I've jumped. I shouldn't have
No, it's
mentioned
fine, Dave. It's absolutely fine. I will say, and I will do another Oz one. It's when they have the rat in the
it.
hut,
Yeah.
which is so brilliant. I mean, I remember that bit where Neville brings the cake out. He brings the cake out, which is from his Brenda's sister's birthday party. But everybody keeps calling it Brenda's cake.
Yeah.
And Neville keeps having to correct them by going, "It's a sister's. It's not hers. It's a sister's." Sort of the levels of pedantry of
Yeah.
Barry there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but
This is
in that scene when he goes, "Hey, one of yous have been at it," and Barry just goes, "Who's done that?"
so disgusting.
And I remember pausing that scene and moving it forward frame by frame just because Tim Spall's expression and the way his face moves is so fucking hilarious.
Amazing.
I think I wore the tape out doing that because I did used to record them and watch them just all the time. And I really bonded with my sister, who was 10 years younger than me, a bit later on when she was older, that we used to watch them together. And she, to this
Lovely.
day, loves Auf Wiedersehen. Pet has got her husband
Brilliant.
into him and other people. But it's not that. It's not that scene. It's the scene after that because they've got this rat and they buy this rat poison. And towards the end of the episode, Neville says, "Oh, Brenda's sending something over. There's going to be a few treats in there." And Oz goes, "Were those little fancies from your Brenda?" "What little fancies?" He says, "Little hard things, swear, tasted a bit queer." And Barry's going, "What you eat? Did you eat one?" He went, "Yeah, just the one. They were only small." And it's the rat poison.
Rat poison.
And then they're like looking dead concerned at Oz and they're saying, "Are you feeling all right, Oz? You know, with yourself?" And he says, "Yeah, champion. Mind you, I've got a raging thirst." Because the rat poison
Yeah,
drives the rats to water
to
because it
water.
makes them thirsty.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a beautiful scene that. It was
Yeah.
just so, so funny. Brenda's little fancies.
Brilliant. Give us another one then, Lee, because I
Okay.
think
Well, one character we've not mentioned, and we haven't mentioned many of the German characters yet, but of course on the site you've got
yes.
Herr Ulrich, the card
Yes.
hand, who's very good, I think.
I know what
But
you're
the
going to say.
main site manager is
Indeed.
Herr
Herr,
Grunwald,
Herr
played
Grumbled.
by
Herr
Michael Sheen,
Grumbled.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bronson, of
Mr.
course,
Bronson,
and
Michael
another
Shea.
another link to Indiana Jones, like
Indeed.
Pat Roach, because he played Hitler in the
He
third
played
film.
Hitler.
Yeah.
This is the great, yeah, brilliant.
But the scene
British.
I've picked for him is when he makes the lads keep McGowan, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we've not really talked about Michael Elphick's character McGowan
No.
when how he ends up in the show. So McGowan is like this. I think he's a brickie. I could be wrong. He might be a labourer. Supposed to be Irish, though you wouldn't necessarily know it
No, it's not the greatest accent, but it's,
from Elphick's accent. But
yeah.
he's like this thug
Yes, he is a thug.
that ends up in the hut and it starts bullying people and
Yeah.
just taking liberties basically. And no one
Yeah.
wants him there because it starts off bad that they have to bail him out because Herr Grunwald says that it's the Brits' responsibility to look after the other Brits. So Elphic's been arrested for fighting, and he ends up in the police station, and he needs bail to get out. So the lads have to put the money together to bail him out. Not that they want to, but Grunwald sort of makes it clear that if they don't, then there could be repercussions for them. He's sort of threatening them with a sack, isn't he?
Indeed, yeah.
But he's got nowhere to stay because he gets kicked out of the hostel as
Mm.
well. And Oz, typical Oz, meets him in the bar and invites him
Yeah.
to stay in the hut, right? Which
Twat.
majorly pisses off the lads.
Twat
Uh,
that
but
he is.
but interestingly, Bomber is away for this episode, isn't he?
Right.
He's
Right.
gone fishing with some Germans because if
Yeah.
he would have been in the hut,
He wasn't going to
then
have
he
any of
wouldn't
it.
have stood for it, and he could have stood up for McGowan. But because
Yeah.
McGowan's pretty hard,
Yeah.
uh, Neville gets punched by McGowan
Yeah.
and disappears into town, which is something he started doing. And the lads are wondering, where's Neville going? He keeps going into town.
Yeah.
And Wayne and Barry in an earlier scene thought that they'd seen him going into a porn cinema. So they
Yeah.
thought, oh yeah, this is Neville's new hobby. Because Neville was always talking about hobbies, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And they go looking for him in the porn cinema. And it's a dead funny scene, isn't it? That they just barge in
Yeah.
on a Sunday morning and the film has to stop because the lights go on and they're looking around and there at the back is Herr Grunwald.
Yeah.
Having previously said he likes spending Sundays with his family.
Indeed. Not in the porn cinema.
So that gives them some leverage. And
Indeed.
Dennis goes and has a quiet word with him afterwards and basically says, well, don't worry, the lads won't say anything, but, you've got to sort the McGowan problem out. And Herr Grunwald obliges and McGowan gets sacked. Or does he get sacked, or does he just decide to leave because he's heard that the judge is going to throw the book at him? I think
Yeah.
that was what
Yeah.
Herr Grunwald made up, didn't it? That he'd heard on the
Yeah.
grapevine that the judge is going to be harsh on him and put him away for a bit. So
Yeah.
he decides to leave, but not before chucking a bit of scaffolding through a window
Yeah.
and pushing down Neville's wall because Neville still can't resist having a bit of a pop when he says you'll not be missed. And the lads are all in buoyant mood then because McGowan's gone and they're expecting some guests over to play this darts match. But what does McGowan do? He nicks the dartboard. One last act of petty revenge.
I know, horrible fucking man.
Oh. But yeah, but like you say, he reappears later on, doesn't he? In the
Indeed,
beer
he
keller
does.
fight.
In the beer keller fight in the final episode. Well, I want to just say as well, because we have mentioned it already at some length, but one of my favourite scenes, without doubt, is the curry house scene,
Yeah.
which is brilliant. And then we find out, of course, what Neville's been disappearing to do.
Yeah.
Because he becomes a waiter and he emerges after Ozzy's blatant sort of like outrageous racism. Come on, Gungadin, come on, Sabu. You know, and then they drag him out to talk to the English people, and but he's dressed up in the turban and the outfit.
Isn't it something to do with Brandon wanted new tiles for the bathroom? He needed more money.
Because the running joke is that, you know, anything Brenda wants, he endeavours to get, and it's all about pleasing Brenda. And of course, he's terrified that Brenda's going to see his tattoo that says Lottie on it that he got on a drunken night out. So, you know, it's a kind of nice ongoing kind of story, that. But the fact that he's working in the curry house is kind of brilliant.
We should maybe mention the tattoo because, of course, I think the second episode, Neville has decided he's too homesick. He's missing Brenda, and he's decided he's going to pack it in and go home. But the lads decide to give him one last good night out, a good send off, and they get him absolutely pissed. And he turns up the next day and finds out that he's got a tattoo on his arm, which says, this is like a love token that says Neville and Lottie. And they say, who's Lottie? I don't know. I can't remember.
I can't remember.
So, of course, that scuppers his plans
of going back.
Going home.
Indeed.
He has to stick it out.
Indeed. Very good. It's good stuff. I wanted to mention in the first episode, I put down here, sort of underlined, meeting Oz for the first time. So straight away, you're straight in on this guy who you know is a dick, basically. Right. And I've just written underneath it, his fucking banger Ford Zephyr, which, that fucking car.
Yeah, which he transports them all in on the ferry into Germany. But of course, yeah, the bit where you realise Oz is a bit of a dick is when they break down on the autobahn.
Indeed.
And Dennis is saying, "Oh, well, is it covered by the insurance?" And he went, "No, it won't be. I haven't got any insurance." What do you mean? How did you get the clearance if you didn't have the insurance? He says, "Well, I got the insurance and then got a refund to give me a bit of spending money." Dennis is horrified.
I think it sets up really well, like Dennis's relationship with Oz and Oz's relationship with Dennis, because he just doesn't get him at all. He thinks Oz he's so deluded about the way he lives his life, and I think he's totally deluded in general, Oz, because I think he thinks that Dennis is his great mate, but that's not the case at all.
No,
it's not the case at all. He thinks he's a fucking liability. When, of course, Neville ends up getting his job as a bricklayer, because, of course, Neville, the opening episode is a thing called when I Was a Carpenter, because he has to pretend to be something he's not, doesn't he, to stay on the camp, Neville, because there's too many. They've got too many people as far as brick is concerned. And then, of course, when he gets into the fight with the piss off back to England, and you hear the bottle smash. Here, I love it when the German official, the number 2 to Herr Gerhard, Herr Ulrich, comes up and goes, "You, Osborne, you are fired."
Yeah, because Neville saves the site, doesn't he? Because he finds a World War II bomb.
Now, I was going to come to that because that was going to be one of my other things is the unexploded bomb, but what is great, I just wanted to say very quickly, it's the great thing at that scene when he goes, "You are fired." Dennis doesn't give a shit.
No.
Dennis is like, "Oh, fuck off.
And that leads
You're
to
a
the scene.
liability."
That leads to the scene in the bar afterwards, which I mentioned earlier, where
Yeah,
Ozzy's feeling sorry for himself and he's saying,
yeah,
you lads didn't back me. If this was back in England, the lads would have been out. And it was like, no, Oz, because you brought it on yourself.
yeah,
How's that
exactly.
like? It's like dead surprised, isn't it? Can't believe it. But Dennis
Oh
gives him a
God.
few home truths
Yeah, he does.
about,
Dennis is
you of course you have, from day one you've been down on the Germans,
he's
you've been
fucking great. Dennis is
antagonistic
great.
towards them, and you've been an absolute dickhead.
Dennis is
Yeah,
great,
because
and he
even
shoots from the hip.
because it's thought that when Neville finds this bomb and he's a hero and he saved the site from blowing up, at that point, Oz is like telling Dennis, "Oh, you've got to get in there and tell him that they've got to give Neville a job." And Dennis, I think he's like, "Well, it's not as simple as that, Yeah, he's done something to save the site, but it doesn't mean it's going to lead to them giving him a job that it doesn't actually exist." So,
Mm,
but it's when Herr Ulrich brings Neville to where Dennis, Oz, and Bomber are laying bricks, and he
mm.
says, "This man starts today as bricklayer," and Oz then immediately starts laying into him and going, "Yeah, it's the least you could do." He says, "Yes, because you, Osborne, are fired."
Fired. Brilliant. I love that. You, Osborne, are fired. Yeah,
And
yeah.
donkey shite to you
Great.
too, pal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to think what my favorite episode is, and it's so difficult to choose, isn't it? But maybe it is the one where Oz, Barry, and Moxie are trying to smuggle porn videos back to England,
Oh God.
which is a harebrained scheme that is led by Oz, of course, and he ropes Moxie and Barry into it because they want to make a bit of extra money. But it leads on to what is my favorite scene of the whole series, I think. So they get involved with this guy who makes porn videos, and
Yeah.
he also owns some like health clubs, spas, and he says to them, "Oh yeah, if we're going to be in business, you should take advantage of the facilities, use the club." During that episode, Barry and Moxie are on this like health kick, aren't they? Barry's
Mm.
got this book, right, which he's following to the letter,
Of course
and
he is.
there's a great scene where Wayne's cooking these sausages and Moxie's like eyeing them up, isn't he? Oh, those sausages look good. And Wayne offers him one, but because they're supposed to be eating healthily, Barry objects and he goes, fat, grease, gristle, Moxie equals heart attacks and acne. Oh, I suppose I better not have one then. You know, But later on in the episode, they're all coming in, or Barry, Moxie, and Oz are just coming in, and Barry's stood at the door in the dark, and he says, "Right, I'm going. Can you do me a favor and not laugh? Laugh at what?" And he goes, "My face. Can't guarantee that, my son." No, this is serious. This is serious. Like, come on, come in, shut the door. It's freezing. So Barry emerges, right, and he's got like a really red face. What's so brilliant about it is the editing and the acting of this scene because the lads have promised not to laugh, right? But Barry's face is so funny that you first of all see Dennis, a little smirk appears on his face, and then it cuts to Wade, who is really holding in a laugh. But then it comes to Oz, who doesn't give a fuck, and he just lets out this huge laugh, doesn't it? Roaring with laughter. And then he comes in, Barry, all embarrassed, and they're going, "What happened to your face?" He went, "It was his fault," pointing at Moxie. He said, "I went on to this sun lap, and he promised to wake me up." Yeah, well, I got involved in a film, didn't I? Don't worry, Barry, you'll probably end up with a great tan. No, I won't, because I peel, I do. Oh,
Amazing. I mean, Timothy Spall, man, he's such a great actor and he's hilarious in this.
yeah.
And he's gone. This is a great thing to point out as well, is the careers these guys have had and other people within the show that come into it, as well. But think of the career that Jimmy Nails went on to have, aside from this, and Timothy Spall and Kevin Whately.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's
Whately very soon after got Morse, of course, didn't he?
He got Morse, didn't he?
Mm.
And then of course went on to do Lewis as well, and and was brilliant. He's
He
great in that.
practiced.
Yeah, well, yeah. He's,
Anything else? I don't think so. But
well, he plays a really good baddie in an episode of George Gently, and I'd like to see it again, that episode, because it's so kind of not Kevin Whately, but he does it really well.
yeah, I do
And I'm
remember
kind of
him being cast as a wife beater in some like one-off drama.
it's kind of good to see him do something different, because I do rate him as an actor. I think he's a great actor,
Mm.
But the series is full of great actors. This is why it works. It works because the characters work, doesn't it? I mean, it works because
Yeah, it's the
you
characters. I mean, you
you're
think,
rooting for them.
what is it that makes this series so good? Well, it's the sum of all its parts. First of all, it's
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant writing, brilliant
yeah,
scripts, brilliant
it is.
dialogue, storylines. I mean, the storylines are so good in the fact
Yeah,
that they do have a very good ending, don't they? Usually a comedic ending.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, just the characters are so well written and acted.
They're great, and there's great like kind of little friendships that emerge throughout, like the kind of interesting sort of friendship between Wayne and Barry and Moxey and Barry. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that obviously that three-way thing with Neville, Oz, and Dennis, which is
Yeah,
always good,
Geordie
and
Mafia.
the Geordie Mafia, exactly. And of course, Bomber is. I mean, Pat Roach holds his own really well in the series.
Mm,
Surprisingly well. I mean, he must have surprised himself how well he did
yeah.
with it. They're all great. Moxie, of course, great. And then, of course, that pretty much final scene where Wayne and Barry come into the hut and they go, "What's that smell? What's that smell, Wayne?" He goes, "I don't know. It doesn't smell good, does it? What is it?" And then they suddenly realise that it's the smell of petrol in the
Mm.
oil
Bloody
in
petrol, that Barry.
bloody
That's your
petrol,
point.
bloody petrol. And then it's bloody Wayne who drops the bloody fag end on the floor and starts the fucking fire.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but it's then when it goes up in a boom like this, Oz comes round with a great line. He goes, "Burn the toast again, Barry." The fucking thing's in an inferno.
Yeah, well, just before
The
that scene.
epitome of not giving a shit. This is the typical thing of Oz. It doesn't give a fuck.
No.
Burn the toast again.
Neville's trying to get back in there because the passports and the tickets are there.
Everything's in there. And they all end up at Dagmar's because obviously, like, Dennis has gone for one last, roll of oats with Dagmar. And they all end up with at Dagmar's flat, don't they?
Oh,
It's a great series,
well,
man.
that's that episode, because I was saying before that they didn't have the last episode written. They had like a
It's a
few
brilliant.
ideas for it, one of which was burning the hut down. But they asked Stan Hay, because he's the other writer on. You've got Lafreniere and Clement, and if you notice, some of the episodes are just written by
Yeah,
Ian Lafreniere, I think, because Dick
yeah,
Clement was off directing some film
yeah.
during it. But they asked this other guy called Stan Hay, but he was like given less than a week to write the last episode.
I did a fantastic
And he
job, I
said,
think.
well, at the time I wasn't married, so I basically just holed myself up in my flat with tins of ravioli and got on with it.
Brilliant.
It's a great episode. There's so many great lines, like the one where
Yeah, it's a brilliant.
Dagmar says to Dennis, "Is it going to be the Rhine or the Tyne?" I mean, that's a beautiful
Yeah,
line, isn't it?
brilliant line.
And like
Brilliant.
you
And
were
they
saying
are.
about the brave Dennis, it's
Yeah.
not like he just rushed it to get it done. There was no drop in quality whatsoever.
No, and it's a
It was a
very.
great episode because, of course, they are faced with this dilemma of whether they go back home, because there was a change in the law in Germany
Yeah,
which affected overseas workers,
yeah.
and they had to become like tax-paying citizens, didn't they? And that
Mm,
made a lot of the Brits go back, because
mm.
I think this sort of thing ended in the early 80s, didn't it? Because of that law change.
Yeah.
And
Have to pay the taxation.
yeah, and it was a good plot device, wasn't it, to
Very
end
good.
the show, I suppose, because they
Very good.
never had any idea or inkling that there would be a second series.
No,
That
no.
wasn't on the cards at all.
I think it's a lovely ending, and it kind of wonderfully melancholic ending as well when they're sort of on the boat looking out at Britain, and he goes, when he goes, oh, what a place, what a place. He goes, well, it looks bloody awful to me. You know what I mean? It's
You kind of beat
fantastic.
it though.
You cannot beat it though.
At the end, the last scene. Well, it's the scene in between the credits, isn't it?
Yeah, in between the credits.
So the credits roll, and then it cuts to Oz, Neville, and Dennis on the ferry back to England.
Yeah.
And they're all pretty happy. Well, I think, if I can remember rightly, Dennis is less happy than the others.
Well, he's got very mixed feelings, hasn't he? Very mixed
Yeah.
feelings. Because I think it feels, and he kind of, I thought that is lovely as well, just to say very quickly, that sort of relationship with him and Dagmar, and them both being kind of mature about it. They were going to have like one last night together. And she's lovely about it. She kind of understands his predicament, and it's very mature and it's very grown up. And they are the grown-ups out of everybody in the show. Dagmar and Dennis are the kind of grown-ups.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Even that bit where Wayne tries to make a bit of a pass at Dagmar, and she just puts him down so quickly.
Yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up.
I wouldn't get your hopes.
Still a chance then. I wouldn't get your hopes up.
It was so beautiful.
Barry starts laughing at him, doesn't he?
Barry loves it. Wayne. That's a great now, Wayne. That's a good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. She's great. She's a really great character.
I know she is.
She's hurting. She's really hurting. You can tell she's really hurting. She wants to. She really cares for him, and he cares for her. But he's made this decision about his family. Which, like you say, I can understand the fans being annoyed about it. Why do you do it, Dennis? But he did it because of his kids. He did it because of his kids.
And that's it. That's the thing with Dennis, isn't it? His honesty. I mean, he's never afraid to say what he thinks.
He's brilliant.
Dennis, even when it's challenging authority, he can be a bit bolshy when he's talking to Herr Ulrich and Grunwald and that. He's not afraid to say it how it is.
What's great about watching it again from when I'm watching it when I was younger, it's like it's kind of all about Oz and Oz's lines and Oz causing trouble and all this kind of stuff. Great, and then a little bit of Barry. Whereas I think Barry's like kind of in a way my supersonically favorite character, really, in a way, because he's so funny. But Dennis's character is the one I admire in it, and he's so sort of grounded, and he plays it brilliant. Tim Healy's a great actor, I think, and I feel like he should have done more, really, Tim Healy after Auf Wiedersehen. I feel like I know he did things like Benidorm and all that, but
I didn't watch Benidorm. I remember watching. There was some show about Binmen, wasn't it, that he was in with Edward Woodward? That was quite good. I only caught a few episodes.
Right, that's interesting.
I can't really think what else he was in, to be honest.
Done a little bits and bobs like Phoenix Night, but they're usually like cameo roles, little bits of work for Reeves and Mortimer, and he's done bits for Reeves and Mortimer.
Oh,
and he's done.
Jeans.
He did a bit on. Oh God, what was that? What was the name of that show they did? I want to say it's not Carrington. What's that place in the northeast where they?
Oh, Catterick.
Catterick. Yeah, there it is. Catterick. Catterick is a surreal 2004 BBC situation comedy, 6 episodes, written by Bob Motter, Rhys Shearsmith, Matt Lucas, Morwenna Banks, Tim Healy, Mark Benton, and Charlie Higson. And he's good, and he's funny in that. He's really good in that. And I'm sure he's done some Shooting Stars things. And he's quite funny in Benidorm, There's bits of Benidorm there's certain episodes of Benidorm which are really quite funny. I only watched it because of lockdown. So in lockdown, we watched all sorts of crap, because it was lockdown. Yeah. But we actually found some of it quite amusing, And he is a good comic actor, but I think he's kind of could have been in other things too, Anyway,
he is in many ways the main character, isn't he, Dennis, of the show?
Oh yeah,
because he's the
yeah.
one that gets them there.
He's the rudder. He's the rudder
Yeah,
of the
he's the
show,
leader, and he does have the most poignant story of the lot,
with,
I think.
without doubt. The main storyline is driven around Tim
Mm,
Healy's character. So it must have been a great role for him to land. But he well deserves it, and he's brilliant in it.
yeah,
And I'm not going to feel sorry for any of them because they all ended up having bloody 4 series out of bloody Auf Wiedersehen Pet,
yeah.
and a lot of success as a consequence of it. They've all had brilliant careers, and more power to them all.
What was interesting is that when it finished filming, I read that Central Television didn't really think it was that good, and they thought they had a bit of a turkey on their hands,
Yeah,
right? Which defies belief, really, doesn't
it's
it?
amazing, isn't it?
I mean, how can you think that? I just don't get it. I mean, but you do hear of this a lot where certain films are concerned, don't you? Like The Wicker Man is an example, isn't it? That
Absolutely,
they didn't,
totally.
the studio hated it, but
Yeah,
and they wanted to bury it. And similarly with this, is that they didn't promote it at all, Central Television.
no,
And also putting it on at 9 o'clock on a Friday night was seen as a suicidal move because it was supposed to be appealing to the working man. And the working man's going to be out in the pub
yeah,
at that time. So they thought, oh, that's killed it immediately. But it got pretty decent ratings to start
yeah,
off with, but it started off well, then it had a bit of a dip, and they were considering moving it to like an 11:30 slot because they just had abandoned it at that point. And then there was something that just made it pick up, and it started to get around, I think it was 13, 14 million. And yeah, that saved the show because it nearly ended up being buried late at night.
yeah. Well, I think one of the great things back in the day when there was only 4 channels. Of course, for a long time, there's only 3 channels. We both remember that. I mean,
Mm,
God, we grew up for a period when there was only 3 channels for a long time. But anyway, when there was 4 channels, you literally had this kind of word of mouth going round. So it's not like today where the proliferation of stuff is crazy. But we have got the internet, so things get mentioned and all that. But back in the day, you'd go to work and say, "Have you seen that new? Have you seen that show, Our Videos Impact? It's a laugh." You go into work. I know it's on a Friday night at 9 o'clock, but if you get a chance, go and watch that. It's great. And
yeah.
I'm sure that's what happened. The word spread, and suddenly it becomes this like hugely popular show.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how fucking wrong these producers and these television companies get things. How wrong they
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
things. It happens time and again. They all these suits and bean counters. They're hopeless. I mean, it's like the film company's the same. They don't really know. They don't really have a clue. Record company's the same. Don't have a clue what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they just think that they'll tag on to the last big success, thinking that's the way forward.
Yeah.
And it's the creatives that come along and come up with something that's new and different, and boom, it works.
Mm.
But not the bloody zoot suits who think, oh, how should we promote this? Oh, how much advertising should we give it? What time slot should we give it?
Mm.
Clueless,
I mean,
clueless. 'Cause-
the critics were really good to it, actually.
yeah,
The tabloids and the newspaper critics, they really liked it. I think it did
well,
get one
that's would have
one
boosted it.
review in
Yeah,
something like the
but that,
Telegraph, but
but not the
generally it was
programmer.
well received.
Yeah, and that's it. But the programmer, in as far as television's concerned, they might say, oh, we got a strong idea what will work and what won't work. I don't believe that at all. They haven't. And they'll throw a lot of money at things. They've done it in the past. They throw an awful lot of money at things that don't work, and then something then creeps through.
Mm.
And that's brilliant that Al Wiedersehen Pet did it. But when you watch it, you can see it's a no-brainer. When you watch it in retrospect, because
It's
it so
interesting that
appeals.
they kept the title Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, because that wouldn't have meant anything to anybody, really, if
Genius,
unless
right?
you spoke German. It was quite a risky title, I
Yeah,
think.
and it's so regional. Auf
Yeah,
Wiedersehen Pet,
yeah.
because it's obviously alluding to the Geordie accent and the Geordie colloquialisms.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
It's brilliant. Everything about it is again, though it's not patronising the viewer. It's just saying, look, it's reeling it out there, and you either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
You understand what it's about. It's about the working man going abroad to earn a living, and
You know what I
uh,
love about it, Dave, and
keep
I
his
think
family together.
yeah, it speaks to I think men particularly because men do like to be with the mates and get away from the day-to-day pressures and just let the hair down. I mean, we did it, didn't we, with the Scotland holidays that we
Yeah,
went on in the
absolutely.
early
Yeah,
2000s. You know, that was us getting away and just enjoying each other's company, being sort of childish again. And
absolutely, mate.
when I was watching Alf with Michelle, I mentioned something like this about why it speaks to me so much, and it is about
Mm,
that camaraderie with your friends and
absolutely.
knowing that you've got good mates who you can rely on, and you can just have the best laughs with. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. And I think you could watch that in in modern parlances and say, oh, it's chauvinistic, and it's misogynistic, it's this, that, and the other. But go and see these reunion shows and see how many women go to these reunion shows, not just men,
Mm.
to watch it. It's I think it's got a much broader appeal because because
Well, yeah, women love it as well, but
women love it as well because
mm,
they get that they understand what men are like. Men do like the company of men a lot of the time. They do like understand that, but they also miss having a woman in their lives, and so
mm,
there is a gentler element to it. There is that
mm.
side of it, especially coming through from Dennis and from Neville. That's what's clever about it. But it is a very male program. It is a very male.
Well, Dennis
Pro-
says this, doesn't it, in the show that he recognizes that for a lot of the guys, and not just this group he's with now, because he's obviously been to Germany before, is that a lot of them got married too young, and now they're reliving the youth. You know, I thought that was a really beautiful point there
and the show does
about what
try
the
and
motivation is for a
absolutely,
lot of the men that do this.
and it doesn't. The show doesn't ignore the plight of the women who are at home and
No.
missing their husbands and struggling because they're sort of left,
Well, there's an
sort of
episode called
bringing
The
up the
Girls They
family.
Left Behind, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. So that's giving a very big nod to it, and there's other elements in the show where that takes place as well, and then there's the other, and then there's the other side of it where they're showing the kind of realism of, say, Bomber's wife,
Mhm.
who's very happy, very much in love with him, loves him a bit, cares about him, is not as bothered by it,
No,
and
I
probably
think she
knows it.
is. I think she is bothered, Dave. I think she is the one out of, well, not
Yeah,
more
but
than
I think
Brenda,
she
but she
accepts.
clearly suffers having to look after the kids on her own, and she
Yes,
thinks Bomber's having the life of Riley out there, which he is.
yeah, yeah. That's probably a bit unfair for me to say that,
Mm,
but she's kind of accepting of it.
mm.
Perhaps, but she's perhaps a bit more
Yeah, there's
used to
probably
it,
a
isn't
part of
she?
her that's glad to see the back of him.
Yeah, but she's more used to it than like Neville's wife struggles with it, and obviously Dennis, the reality, the hilarity with Oz and his wife is they're two peas in a pod. They're both they both don't give a shit,
Which
really.
came first, though, her promiscuity or your neglect? What Barry
Exactly,
says. That
brilliant.
might have been from series two. I can't be sure, but
One of the classic lines of Barry that is just so good. But I kind of felt with Bomber's situation, it's more of an acceptance that he is, and she misses him
yeah,
and
she
loves him
knows he's
dearly.
out there shagging other women, doesn't she?
She knows it. She knows it. She's more accept. Whereas
And he knows she knows it.
he knows she knows. Whereas with Dennis, with Neville, it's a lot more tricky in a way, and maybe that's an
Mm,
age thing as well. They're a
mm,
little bit younger,
yeah.
so that's the implication there, I think. But they touch on a lot of interesting ideas in amongst the humour, don't they? You know, which is great,
I
which is
think
great, and
it's
you
just
feel for
reminded me
Dennis.
of a brilliant scene where you realise how feckless Oz is. You know, at
No, he's
that
a
point,
feckless.
you know he's a bit he's a bit of a selfish twat. But when it's revealed that he's got a son,
Yeah,
and this is through Dennis having a go at him because I think
yeah,
Oz provokes Dennis by saying, "Oh, well, you don't have to worry about that anymore because your marriage is down the toilet." Dennis fires back that your marriage is a joke or something.
yeah.
He said, "We're still together, aren't we?"
Yeah.
And he said, if if you had a wife and a kid, you should at least be sending them some money. And then the rest of the lads are absolutely dumbstruck, aren't they? And it's
Yeah.
never who speaks up saying, "So I didn't know you had a kid.
You had a
What?
kid, exactly.
What have you got?" And Barry comes in. What is it, boy or a girl? He goes, little laddie. How old is he? Oh, he's about 5, 6. Don't you know? He's 6. He's 6. He doesn't actually know how old his son is.
He doesn't give a shit. I mean, he's the prime target of like community bloody infiltrating his bloody family life. I mean, he's a terrible fucking father. He's a terrible husband. You kind of think that that the powers that be would look into their affairs. You know, it's shocking.
I love the way that he manipulates the situation when he ends up accidentally going back on the plane to Tyneside when they go and
Yeah.
watch the Sunderland Liège match, which of course is one of the most controversial storylines in the whole show. That why the hell would 3 Newcastle fans go and watch Sunderland play a European match? Do you remember when they go to watch?
Yeah.
So Oz ends up going back on the charter plane, and he
Yeah.
has to make out to Marjorie that he was really touched by a letter and he couldn't stay out there any longer. He thought he needed to
Yeah.
come back and make amends, which of course is complete bullshit.
Total bullshit.
And he ends up nicking the money that's saved for his son's birthday
This is what I mean.
to get the airfare to go back.
It's so outrageous. I mean, Oz, his wife, the child, where the social services should be involved. They really should be.
Well, yeah, so she's
Social
just
services
shagged some
should be
other
putting.
bloke, hasn't she? That's just
Yeah,
left 5 minutes before Oz arrives.
Ozzy's
You
poor
can't
son should be
blame her
put.
though.
Ozzy's poor son should be put in care from
Yeah.
social
Well,
services because the
in
neglect
series
is
2, though,
horrible.
Dave, he does become a bit of a dad to him, and there's
Thank
clearly
God.
some affection there, which you
But it
should,
did strike
it's
me.
the least you should be having for your son.
I know, but in a way, that's kind of good though because it's quite obvious. Like Dennis really cares about his kids, and then he's got to put up with this bullshit with his wife and this other fella, fucking
Alan.
Alan. You know what I mean? And you really feel for Dennis, and at the
Yeah,
same
she's
time,
rubbing his face in Alan, isn't she?
yeah, rubbing his face in on it. I
Then
mean,
then sees her arse when he brings Dagmar.
exactly, fucking unbelievable, in it? And it's outrageous. And then the flip side of that, you've got bloody Oz there, who is like literally a candidate for social services taking his kid away. So it's kind of this, but it's brilliant that in a way because it shows the contrast. It
Yeah.
shows the contrast of care, and the huge void between Dennis and Oz, and Neville and Oz. There's a huge void because Oz just doesn't really give a shit.
Yeah, I wonder though.
Well, that kind of
I feel
softens,
like
that
I should
changes.
try and think of maybe some excuses for Ozzy's behaviour in that respect.
But you can't. You really
Maybe
can't.
that was
In
how
the
he was
first
brought up.
series, you can't.
Yeah, but he
You
does
can't.
have some affection for his mum, doesn't he?
Yes.
I think
We'll give him that much.
he pretends has died at some point. Where
Yeah,
Barry says,
exactly.
"Didn't your mother ever tell you?" Because he's having a go at him for cutting his toe off. Did I have a mother? Did I have a mother? Did I? Yes, you did, says
Yes,
Dennis.
you did.
She'll probably be down the local having a brown ale or something.
Having a stout, yeah, Mackerson stout. Yeah, brown ale's probably in it, northeast.
The thing we should talk about, really, Dave, is the brilliant music and the brilliant lyrics.
Oh yes,
Both of
indeed.
the theme tunes, because I
Indeed.
absolutely love the first theme, which is Breaking Away. And
breaking away.
I just love the lyrics, used all your options, paid all your dues. And the scenes where you see him like walking past the Dole office or looking in the Dole office and arriving at, strange places, getting off buses and Barry's bike breaking down and all this.
Yeah.
The last theme, of course, that's Living All Right, which we're probably going to play out with unless we get stopped by the copyright bastards.
Which has made this is the famous piece of music for the film because the thing is, the opening song is when I watched the series recently on ITVX, I thought, oh yeah, and it came back to me. I started singing it, through the episodes. But "Living All Right" is the song that everyone knows,
I think it got
and
to number 3 or 4 in the charts.
yeah,
A
by
big
Joe
hit.
Fagan, which I always used to say, oh, well, I didn't know the manager of Liverpool was a singer as well, which is a really bad joke.
Again, great lyrics.
Telling the lie with a glint in your eye, 'cause tomorrow you'll be back on the site. And you kiss the dames, but you don't ask the names, and that's living all right.
I love the what is it? Working all day for a packet of pay and send a
Hey,
little back to the
back
wife.
to the wife. That's it.
Apart from Oz, he never did.
Yeah, yeah,
But you keep a little here just to keep you in beer. That's living all right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Work in the sun, drinking schnapps, having fun. That's living all right. Then a night in the town, spreading it around. Spreading what around? The money or your venereal
Wayne.
disease? Yeah, Wayne. That's living all right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any
All
final
day for a
bits.
pittance of pay. Then you blow it all on Saturday night. So true. Any final bits? No, just a perfect, yeah, absolute perfect, like you say, opening song, finishing song, brilliant acting, great characters, legendary show, isn't it? Legendary British show, one of the best. For me personally, I kind of watched the first 2 series, and I don't remember really watching much beyond that. So it's going to be interesting going into the latter series.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember the first series in particular having a big impact and thinking it was really, really a good laugh.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm trying to
and
think whether
great.
I don't think I saw probably the first episode or even the first 2 episodes. I think I must have just seen my mum and dad watching it because we did end up all watching it as a family. And I know we said the Friday night slot wasn't perfect, but for me it was. It made Fridays even better. Come home from school and know that you've got the weekend and a brilliant Friday night in front of you, which probably included the A team or something like that.
Absolutely.
Right, we're going to wrap up now. It's been a brilliant chat. I've loved talking about Auf Wiedersehen. As I say, it's my favourite show. We're going to go on to series 2, but not on the next podcast because the next podcast is
Hey.
our 100th edition. Would you believe?
A century of podcasts.
So we're going to have a look back and talk about our favourite episodes and just what we enjoy about podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tune into that. So we're going to do series 2 after that one. But I hope you've enjoyed this one, and please send us in your opinions and memories of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, because it really is a special show. So until next time, away the lads.